This is a stimulus update and daily news report. Got some important updates to share with you today. The debt ceiling has been reached, and Americans supposedly will feel the pain of this debt. I'll play a video clip of what Bernie Sanders has to say about that. New proposals of $500 checks going in one state, and then direct payments worth $600 could help families under a new proposal in another state. Then the exact date Americans need to act to get one-time payments worth up to $800, and I'll give you some other important updates as well. Hope you're having a terrific Thursday. If you appreciate the fact-based, fast-paced updates, hit the like button down below, and I'm giving $200 checks to my subscribers today. I'm picking the winners today. I will put out a video at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so if you haven't signed up already, you still have some time to do so. Details down in the description below if you want to win a $200 check. All right, let's get into it. Stimulus update. Georgia residents could get up to $500 cash back in Governor Kemp's next budget. So when it comes to Governor of Georgia, Kemp, we're seeing this in a few different places. So it could be individuals getting $250 and joint filers getting $500. The pitch was made during a meeting he had with state lawmakers on Tuesday, where he wanted to return some of the state's $6.57 billion in surplus back to taxpayers. So if you're in Georgia, this is just a proposal, but it could be $250 for individuals, $500 for couples. And then direct payments worth $600 could help families under a new proposal. So here's the second proposal here. New Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey endorsed $600 child relief payments while campaigning in 2022. The program would benefit an estimated 700,000 Massachusetts families. Household dependent tax credit is capped at 2 dependents for a maximum payment of $360. The dependent care tax also has a maximum of 2 dependents offers $480. So if you live in Massachusetts under this plan, it could allow, with both programs, allow families to get up to $600 in credits per dependent without a cap. So that's a proposal going on in Massachusetts. And then exact date Americans need to get one-time payments worth up to $800 in March. See if you're eligible. So this is going on in South Carolina. I actually got this $800 check maybe about a month ago. And in order to be part of the second round in March, residents must file by February 15th. So a lot of these checks the first deadline was October 17th, and those checks went out for $800. And now I guess they're extending another deadline for the second round, which you have to file by February 15th, and you get the checks in March. So yeah, be aware of that. Moving on, America is set to hit its borrowing limit today, raising economic fears. The milestone will not immediately affect markets or growth, but it sets the stage for months of entrenched partisan warfare. So it is that time of year again. The debt ceiling has been reached, and let the fighting and arguments between both parties begin. So every American could feel the pain of Washington's next showdown. So we just got over the government showdown last month, and now the riskiest debt ceiling showdown yet. This year's debt ceiling showdown could be the riskiest yet, since Kevin McCarthy offered radical conservatives whose votes he needed to become House Speaker guarantees that debt ceiling would not be raised without significant cuts to government spending. So if you remember that whole Kevin McCarthy debacle where he was trying to be speaker, it took 15 votes to do so. Well, in order to finally become speaker, he had to make some deals, and I guess some of those deals were cutting government spending before a debt ceiling agreement could be reached. So the first showdown between Republicans and the White House. So what was said here is, we cannot raise the debt ceiling. Democrats have carelessly spent our tax money and devalued our currency. They've made their bed, so they must lie in it. So this time is probably actually going to be the worst, because last time Democrats were in control of the House, so they had, a little bit of leverage. Now Democrats don't have control of the House, Republicans do. So this could get pretty ugly. This could affect a few different programs around the country. Also, U.S. Set to hit debt ceiling, prompting Treasury to take extraordinary measures. So we've heard a lot of threats and bold claims that bad things are going to happen. National Economic Council Director Brian Dees on Thursday repeatedly called on Congress to meet the United States obligations by raising the debt limit, warning against economic chaos that could ensue should Congress fail to do so, saying this is about economic stability versus economic chaos, calling on Congress to do its basic fundamental obligation, adding, even just the specter that the United States might not honor its obligation does damage to the economy. Yeah, so, I mean, it seems pretty bad, but I guess we'll see what happens. Take a look at what Bernie Sanders has to say.
House Republicans are making a big show of holding the economy hostage by refusing to raise the debt ceiling because they did it once before, 12 years ago, and it worked. Back in 2011, a newly empowered Republican House refused to raise the debt ceiling and were able to negotiate nearly $1 trillion in spending cuts. And those cuts, to be clear, hurt working people in this country. They slowed down an economic recovery, putting many in very dire straits. And now, after an unprecedented era of dislocation over the last few years caused by the coronavirus pandemic and its aftermath, we currently have very low unemployment, job growth growing, and inflation crucially slowing, which is to say real wages starting to tick up. As clear skies are finally starting to appear over the horizon, Republicans are threatening to start a crisis again. So what would that mean for working people in this country? Someone who's made that question a focal point of his decades-long career in Washington, including a speech from the Capitol today on the state of the working class, Senator Bernie Sanders, independent Vermont senator. Welcome. Senator, I want to start with the history here. I think when you look in retrospect at the recovery from the great financial crisis, that period of austerity and enforced spending cuts, the sequester after 2011, really did appreciably hurt the recovery, hurt working people, hurt wage growth and job growth during that period. Are you thinking about that as you think about this next year?
The answer is yes. And what I'm also thinking about, Chris, is we live in a moment in history where we have more wealth and income inequality in America today than perhaps ever in the history of this country. 3 people owning more wealth in the bottom half. We have a working class today where weekly wages, adjusted for inflation, for the average American worker, is lower than it was 50 years ago. You got millions of people working for starvation wages, 10, 11, 12 bucks an hour. So clearly what we have got to do in Congress is have the courage to stand up to powerful corporate interests and their lobbyists and start working for working families, not just the 1%.
When you say the working class, how do you define that term? How do you think about it?
I think it is the vast majority of the American people, maybe significantly brown and black disproportionately, but it is tens and tens of millions of people. And I got to tell you something, Chris, we don't talk about those people anywhere near enough. We don't talk about the fact that life expectancy for working class people is going down, and the gap between how long wealthy people live and working people live is just very, very wide. We don't talk about the fact 85 million Americans have no health insurance. People can't afford prescription drugs. And I think we have got to start focusing on the majority of the American people are working class, middle class, lower income people. It is quite unbelievable. You got 18 million families in America who spend 50% of their limited incomes on housing. How do you survive on that? How do you survive on 14 bucks an hour? Those are the issues we got to start focusing on.
I want to follow up on something you just said, because this is something I've been really focused on recently. Many of the trends you're describing, whether it's wage stagnation or growing inequality, are true for decades, right? They sort of can move up and down depending on what's going on at that period, but the general trends. One of those, though, is a product of 2059, and that's the drop in life expectancy. The U.S. is undergoing a drop in life expectancy, particularly disproportionately located in working and poor folks. That's basically unlike anything. I mean, COVID is a huge part of that. We've seen it in other rich countries, but what's happening in the U.S. is unlike anywhere else. And it strikes me as bizarre that this central statistical fact about the country isn't a urgent matter of policy debate in Washington across the political spectrum that people are dying earlier, that the whole point of having a flourishing society is to give people longer lives.
Chris, you're absolutely right. And you have to read my book. It's coming out in a month or so. We got several chapters on that issue. But here is the point. How does it happen that despite spending almost twice as much per capita on healthcare as the people of other industrialized nations, our life expectancy is lower and getting worse? And as you point out, it is getting really bad for low-income and working-class people. And what the doctors tell us, and I've studied this issue a bit, is we're looking at what they call diseases of despair. When people are going nowhere in their lives, they can't afford health care and education, their kids are worse off, they turn to drugs, they turn to alcohol, they turn to even suicide. So you're right, this is an issue of enormous consequence, which we should be discussing and working on a lot more.
Is there a single policy you can imagine improving life for folks, working people in this country in the year 2023 that could pass the Republican House?
I would hope, I've seen polls where Republicans regard the high cost of prescription drugs as a major, major concern. I would hope that Republicans and Democrats could come together to take on the greed of the pharmaceutical industry, who in some cases are charging us 10 times more for the same exact drugs as sold in Canada and other countries. I would also hope that while I know we're not going to pass a Medicare for all system, which I would like to see, at least maybe we could expand primary health care all over this country so that every American can get to a doctor when he or she needs to do that.
So what are your thoughts? Are things going to get really bad here in the U.S. and the economy? Is it going to get worse due to this debt limit showdown? Let me know your thoughts on that. And that is all the news that I have for you today to hopefully brighten your day a bit. Here's my daughter Bella's tip of the day.
Hi guys, this is Belle's tip of the day, and what I want to tell you is always stay happy. Always be glad for your family, because your family is the ones who made you and made you. So everybody, hope you have a good July 4th. Bye! Now?
Thank you so much for watching. Appreciate your support. Don't forget, I'm picking the winners for those $200 checks today, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So stay tuned for a video coming out then when I pick the winners. So also, hopefully you have a great day. If you want to check out any of my other videos, click right up here. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Be safe. Thank you for watching.